Hey there folks, I wanted to do just a sort of a review episode here, sort of going over just things I think could be picked up from this game and how I think it went. So, a few things that would be different now. Nowadays, in the current patch, you can no longer declare a day one war like we did here. I mean, it doesn't change things massively. We would still want to declare war on Byzantium as soon as possible, but that would give them, 30 days to secure some alliances with like Poland or who knows who all, maybe Venice. So that would have been a problem. Potentially, but hopefully not too bad. But that would have given us, because the way it worked, we didn't secure our alliance with Crimea or Bohemia or anybody before we really got into a war. So I guess it would also have strengthened our position some starting off. So, it's just a difference in the game now. One thing I really wish I had done earlier on, though, was used vassals more, fed vassals more. I played really sloppily in terms of trying to core everything because we had such a good leader starting off, right? It was what, 556 or something ridiculous. And I mean, having a really well-rolled leader can make up for making some just really bad decisions, but just I'll zoom back out here where there's like something more to see. But just playing well will not put you in a position where you're in trouble if you don't have that well-rolled king. If I'd used vassals, we could have gotten the humanist idea group a lot earlier, and that would have been really nice. What I think we should have done is, I still like the early alliance with Bohemia, assuming they hate Austria, which I think most of the time will be the case. So we'd still want to get that alliance, because Bohemia can kind of help us against Poland, against Austria, potentially against Hungary. Like, Bohemia is just a good ally for us at that point in the game. Probably still get the alliance with Crimea. They have a naval presence. They're good against Poland, Lithuania. Like, the naval presence mean they're relevant against the Mamluks and folks over here. I guess if you can get France on your side early, that's also a good thing, especially again if they hate Austria. Would have those as allies, and then I'd be looking to have like about 2 vassals and to be feeding them actively. So Ragusa kind of worked out for us, right? We eventually vassalized Ragusa. They took over Bosnia here. But we really could have done something else there. I don't necessarily like the idea of vassalizing Serbia, at least not straight up. You do want Kosovo. The gold mine, that's so much money. It's so much money, and you do want to grab it, and you do want to have it in your country. So, probably grab Kosovo, but somewhere over here make a vassal and just feed this stuff to the vassal and let that be that. If you go to war with Hungary, again, feed that to the vassal. That stuff over here we did with Lakia, that was our cores. I think that to some degree the cores change per game. I'm not 100% sure on that. But down here, the stuff we did with the Mamluks and who else was over here? Kara. So yeah, Syria still has cores over here. Like, Syria has a pretty large amount of cores, and we really should have over here. We should have had Syria out. We should have fed most of this area to Syria instead of trying to core it ourselves. That would have saved us a lot of points, because yeah, there's massive development over here, just enormous amount of development, and we would have just been really well placed by having this stuff go to our vassal. Potentially it could have hurt us in terms of some of the missions we had over here, but that still would have been fine. Like, we take these lands, for our vassal, we grow our vassal. Meanwhile, we're piling up some admin points to core this other stuff over here. And also to work on the humanist ideas, which we would have gotten earlier. And as we saw through the playthrough, I mean, humanist is just amazing. I built it up in the first few episodes and then didn't show you for like 100 years or 150 years or whatever it was. But I think it lived up to the hype. I guess it wouldn't have been 150 years. We're only about 150 years in now. But yeah. So on that front, I really think in the early game that's something I could have done that would have been a lot better. So another thing I want to talk about, for if you want to play the Ottomans, you know, an Ottoman campaign, like the way I approached the early game was still correct. You want to grow as big as possible, as fast as possible. I mean, you start off as one of the world powers, but you want to get snowballing and be steamrolling the folks around you as fast as possible. Because at some point, the fact that these nations are Western is gonna be a thing. It's going to matter and it's gonna mean something. I mean, we saw, like, even with all our bonuses in the Janissaries going, Austria's army was just flat out strong as hell. So, like, you need a huge core so you can have all the manpower that we had and be able to bring that to bear against your opponents. So grow as fast as possible. You want to especially focus on getting all your cores, right? We had like Karaman and Ramazan and all those little guys over here that had our cores. Just gobble those up as fast as you can because they're not going to cost you any points. But be very mindful of attrition. I'm in a big to-do about that to start off with in the game. It's so important at the start of the game. I got really lazy about it in the later parts, especially in the war with like the Timurids and the Commonwealth. But in the early parts of the game, attrition will ruin your game. It will flat out just set you back decades of game time. Just be very mindful. If you only need 3 folks to siege a place down, at most have 4 there, unless there's like an army right beside it. You cannot afford to lose any more manpower than you absolutely have to. Especially as the Ottomans, because there's so much warring you need to do. And yeah, that's kind of the next point. Be at war. Like, as much as possible, be at war. You want to be grabbing territory pretty much all the time. I mean, don't go over your overextension limit. That's another of the really nice things about grabbing up cores. And also another good thing about feeding vassals. But more or less, be going to war. Like, and don't be afraid. There's sort of a tendency in folks' minds to, like, when we went to war with the Mamluks, or with Venice, or if we had gotten into a war with, like, Poland or Hungary. You have these really big countries in the early game. There's sort of a mindset of, yeah, I'm gonna beat them. I'm gonna beat the Mamluks, or I'm gonna beat Austria, and folks get kind of wrapped up into that thinking, and they keep going in wars that they've already won, or that they've already done what they had to do. Do not get into a protracted campaign. Don't fight a prolonged war, right? Get in and get out against these big targets. Like the first time we went to war with the Mamluks, we took Antioch, and that's all we took. Like, we could have kept going, but because, again, manpower is so important in the early game, and there's so much else for us to be focusing on. Even if, you know, we had come down here and we'd sieged some forts down, man, all we could take was, like, war reps from them before they came back and we got into another fight. I think you're still better off taking the war reps, making them pay you, going and fighting somebody else, right? You know, you come over here and you take some more out of Koyunlu or Kara or, you know, Georgia, whatever. Or even back over here like Wallachia, Bosnia, all these guys. Make them pay you war reps. Then in, you know, once a truce is up and you come back in like 7 years or whatever it is, they've been paying you that whole time. They've been funding your campaigns. They've been paying for your army. When you come back, you're going to be stronger than you were before, and you can crush them more easily. And so you take, you know, bit by bit, so at a certain point you can just, you know, take whatever you want. But don't overextend. Don't waste your manpower. Don't get into a position where you have to just sit around and do nothing. Because while you're doing nothing, these little guys are making alliances and they're building up their forces, they're teching up, and it's just, you lose so much ground. It's such a snowball effect when you don't get going ASAPly. Another thing, like we kind of lucked up with this whole Cagliari and all this area over here, Corsica, being able to get this land without really having to do a lot of work for it, without really having to slog through like fighting Aragon or Spain to get this land over here. And that made it so much easier for us to get Rome. Like, if we had had to come through this way, through Venice and Austria and down through the Pope and Tuscany and Siena and all these, all this, or just coming up through Naples, the aggressive expansion would have been amazingly bad. It would have slowed us down so much, because we've really only fairly recently gotten to the point where if everybody joined a coalition against us, we'd probably be okay. Like, at that point, if Austria and all these guys joined a coalition against us, we kind of would have just had to sit on our hands and, you know, we could probably defend if they attacked us, but we couldn't start the war. So that was a massive boon. If in your game that didn't break down that way, you would probably be best served trying to come up through Italy, like, you know, maybe grab Salento here. Certainly if you could get Ragusa, you could try just taking Ancona and going from there, you know, maybe through Umbria, or depending on the exact political structure, you could try to come Abruzzi to Roma, or you could just try, if the Pope was sufficiently weak in terms of allies, you could just try to take, you know, use your claim on Ancona, siege down Roma, and take that from them. But again, if they've got a large network of allies, you know, say the Pope is allied to, I don't know, Burgundy or somebody stupid or large up here that you can't really get to, that's going to be really tough to get enough war score. Yeah, so, you know, look for an opportunity like this. If you can get the islands over here, it's a massive help, because the less aggressive expansion you have to take for, or you have to suffer for taking lands over here, the better. And it's really bad, the AE you get for this land over here, especially when it's still, the stuff up here is still in the Empire. It's terrifying. Now, speaking of things that went well for us, something I messed up. Okay, the Hejaz thing. I tried to make Hejaz a vassal, and my thought process was good. Like, there was no point in attacking Hejaz. There's no reason to come down here and fight. I don't get anything from it. So vassalizing them was a good idea, but I screwed up the execution. What I should have done was, you know, improved relations with them, maybe not all the way. Like, just keep them where they like us quite a bit until we actually had a border. We could get rid of that. The main thing we had was a distance between border penalties here. You know, we were doing all right in terms of our economy against them. There was still, you know, a little bit of a delta there, but it was fine. But the way it worked was I allied them too soon, and that meant that, you know, the people like Marahan, the other folks on the Arabian Peninsula here, they couldn't attack Hejaz because they couldn't fight us, and Hejaz was able to just kind of eat up what they wanted, and they got too big. They're over 100 development now, and we can't make them our vassal. So that's something I would suggest you don't. You kind of keep an eye out for. The thought process I had was right. The way I did it was wrong. So if you can do the first without doing the second, you're well on your way to success. So what I would say is, going forward, because I mean we've still got 200 plus years left in this game, we're done with the series. Like we've done what we set out to do. I don't know of any real achievements otherwise for us to get, and at this point we have won the game. Like, we could keep going and we could paint more of the world our particular color of orange, but there's not a whole lot of challenge left. Like, even if we would have to fail on a catastrophic scale to not be able to easily recover. But what I would do going forward, again, once we finish off our ideas here, the influence ideas, we would have finally our national ideas. So we would get some more land force limit, cheaper ship cost, which isn't an amazing thing, but it would save us, part of a ducat. That would be welcome anyway. And more trade efficiency, which would be very good for us. We make a decent amount of money from trade. From there, I would want to take quantity ideas. We already have a large manpower pool, and as I said, like at some point, the Western nations are just going to have better modifiers than you, better armies than you. So what we would really want is to just have a huge number of bodies, a huge force limit, and a huge manpower pool. So plus 50% manpower right now, that's almost 60,000 manpower. That's enormous. But it would only get larger as we took more land. I mean, we're to the point now we'd start integrating Persia and Crimea, add a lot more development, a lot more manpower base, so on and so forth. Manpower recovery speed, again, that would be incredibly helpful for us. Regiment cost, again, land maintenance modifier helps us afford to keep big armies. Mercenary thing's not that great. Garrison size, I think affects the amount that they need to siege, so it's not that terrible. Land attrition, very nice, but 50% more land force modifier to go with 50% more manpower. This would mean we could have, a much larger army and a much more larger manpower to go with that army, so we could better afford to attack on multiple fronts. You've seen in the past few videos, I more or less had to focus on a front and then, just sort of maybe hold on this side, advance on this side, and then swing around once we'd won this side. At that point, we could afford to have, even like twice as many stacks as we have now. Maybe not quite that, but we would have a large percent more in the way of units, and we could afford to fight a little more effectively. From there, I'd also want to grab either trade or economic ideas, probably, frankly, economic, just because most of our money comes from taxes as it is. The inflation reduction would be nice. It would be a good excuse to boost up Kosovo's development a little more. Let's see. Interest per annum, we do have some loans right now. Monthly autonomy change, again, that would be very, very nice. And more land maintenance modifier reduction helps us afford our armies even more. Production efficiency, again, more money. And reduced development costs, again, that ties along with the Kosovo thing. And we would have the slots. Again, we could take both if we really felt like we wanted to. At that point, it would probably come down to what I thought we needed. Administrative ideas for cheaper core cost is something we could do. Diplomatic ideas for cheaper province war score costs, so we can take more in wars. And just whatever we felt like we needed to fill out from that point. So yeah, I hope that goes over sort of, some things to help if you wanted to play an Ottomans campaign, or really pretty much any campaign, like recognizing in the early game whether you were in a position where you can expand, or whether you're in a position where you need to set up some particular thing that's going on. If you're a small country and you need to get an alliance with, say, the Ottomans or Poland or Muscovy or France, whatever it is you need. Mamluks, maybe, if you're down here. Just realizing what it is in the early game you need to do and executing that is the major obstacle to your success in the game. So But hopefully the rest of that gives you some ideas for going forward and just kind of increasing the rate at which you can proceed and how far you can go. So hopefully that was useful. Hopefully you've enjoyed this series, and yeah, I'll see you next time. If there's a country you're interested in me playing, you can throw it in the comments below, and maybe we'll see about doing that in the future. So yeah, thanks for watching, folks, and I hope to see you next time.